Spring football is in the books, and we're turning our eyes to the backfield. Who's stepping up? Who's breaking out? And just how deep is this Iowa running back room? Let's break it down today.
You are Locked On Hawkeyes, your daily podcast on the Iowa Hawkeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, welcome in. I'm Trent Condon, and this is the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Your team every day. We're talking Iowa Hawkeyes sports with you each and every day on Locked On Hawkeyes. I've been covering the Hawkeyes for over 20 years on the radio, currently on the Iowa Sports Radio Network statewide, including our flagship 106.3 KXNO, along with stations in Sioux City, the Quad Cities, Iowa City, and Cedar Rapids. You can hear me each weekday talking the world of sports on the Iowa Sports Radio Network from noon until 2 with Ken Miller. Busy program today. Iowa baseball making its way to the capital city. We'll talk about the matchup against Oregon State and why Iowa very well could have a big advantage against a top 10 ranked Beaver squad. Plus, we'll be joined by Tom Kakert from Hawkeye Report. A look with Tom about what's happening in the transfer portal, what is going on with recruiting, and just what is going on with Ben McCullen's basketball program on the recruiting front. Are they done? We'll get into that with Tom Kakert. But we begin today's conversation with a look at the running back spot. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. A year ago, Iowa got an incredible season from Caleb Johnson. What he was able to do a year ago. Remember, starting the year on the bench as he was suspended for the first half of the first game of the year. They came in shorthanded, and you wondered, after what proved to be a pretty tumultuous season during his sophomore campaign, after jumping onto the scene, what we saw out of him early on, you thought this guy was going to be outstanding, and his sophomore year was anything but. It was a disappointment of what he was able to do during that season. Yet, we hoped, we waited, and eventually we got an All-American year. A season ago, this is the numbers. 21 touchdowns rushing, over 1,500 yards, averaged 6.4 yards per carry, also chipped in with 22 receptions, 2 touchdowns through the air, a combined 23 touchdowns, 1,700 plus yards from scrimmage, and All-American honors. Now, you wouldn't anticipate that anybody is going to be able to take over and put together that kind of production alone this season. But also remember back to a year ago at this time, the buzz that was building with Kamari Moulton after his freshman year. A lot of people thought that Kamari Moulton was going to be the guy, that got the same amount of carries that we saw from Caleb Johnson last year. And that didn't happen. This is an incredibly deep running back room. And when we talk about the 6 running backs that are on campus, all of them are dynamic in different ways. All of them have something that you can really point to and say, this is why this guy can have a breakout season. To match it alone is not going to happen. It's not realistic to expect anybody to do that. We're also talking about a year that we just don't see very often at the running back spot at Iowa. Now, Tim Lester's offense, I think, is going to change that, and we're going to see that complementary football on the offensive side of them helping out with both the running and the passing game down the line. But we start the conversation with Kamari Moulton. And after what Moulton did over the last couple of years, out there as a freshman, then this past season in a backup role, he was still able to pack together nearly 500 yards on the ground. He had a long of 68 yards. He averaged 7 yards per carry, 84 runs, 473 yards, and the 3 touchdowns, had a couple of touchdowns during his freshman campaign. This is where the conversation is going to begin. Moulton is the guy. And if anybody's going to replicate anything close to it, it is going to be with him at the running back spot. Up next is Jaziun Patterson. And, with Patterson, we do wonder a little bit, is this just what he's destined for? He's a backup. He runs hard. He's not a big guy, listed at 5'10", 195 pounds, but he certainly plays bigger than that. Had the big run 2 years ago against Iowa State to put Iowa on the doorstep at Jack Trice Stadium. And he is just solid, dependable. And it also says something about him and his predecessor at the running back coach spot, Liddell Betts keeping him around and keeping him happy. It's been so easy for guys just to jump ship in today's environment, and that hasn't happened at the same degree at the running back position. Then we get into a different type of player, and that's Terrell Washington Jr. So, TJ, this is a player out of Texas. Moved over to wide receiver last year. Then they moved him back to running back. He's kind of been back and forth. But one thing we do know is they're incredibly excited about the dynamic nature that he is. And this is a guy that could be that game breaker, right? If you're looking for a guy that's going to be your big play threat, the guy that obviously Caleb Johnson turned into, I think Terrell Washington Jr. is the player that you look at because of his ability out of the backfield coupled with that big play ability. That is who you're looking for. Two redshirt freshmen also bear mentioning at the running back spot. And this also shows you the depth of this team. Xavier Williams once again turned some heads, and he is built differently than any of the running backs that Iowa has. Iowa's, all the other guys, right around 200 pounds. That's what they are. Not the case with Xavier Williams. He is a butcher knife. He is a rolling ball of butcher knives. That's Xavier Williams. Big dude, 5'10", 230 pounds, thick yet not slow. Not a guy that you say, all right, he doesn't have the step to be a running back at the Big Ten level. Really impressed what we saw out of him going back to Kids Day, the open practice at the end of spring. I think he's got a chance to help them in a different way. And if it does get to the spot, Moulton's 5'9", 197. If it's a spot where we feel like we would like to have that battering ram, that goal line back, and it's not what it was back in the 70s and 80s and 90s where a goal line back was an important thing. But if Iowa does decide that's something that they would like, Xavier Williams definitely would be a guy that you could put into that kind of role. The other redshirt freshman is Brevin Dahl. So Dahl a year ago was able to travel towards the end of the season. He made the trip out to Maryland. He was part of the travel squad. He just got to get healthy and dealt with a leg injury, hamstring during spring practice, also had a little bit of an illness, but it sounds like he is working his way back. He has elite level speed. You look at him as a track athlete at the high school level at ADM, what he was able to do in terms of the speed factor that he has. We talked about TJ Washington and his speed component. That is Brevin Dahl. You also wonder with Dahl if special teams are going to be a spot maybe that he can crack the lineup a little bit, if there can be an opportunity for him either as a kick returner. I think that would be the most realistic one, or even in the punt return game, if that's where we start to see Brevin Dahl out there a little bit more. And then finally, in a guy that, frankly, I didn't think we were going to talk about, Nathan McNeil, because of the five guys that are in front of him, because I think we all have a factor that we like with all of these different guys, that this freshman Nathan McNeil, he didn't have many offers. Iowa was not exactly beating the who's who. In fact, he didn't have an SEC offer. He didn't have an ACC offer. For a kid from Tampa, a Florida kid, to not have any of those kind of programs sniffing around, you're left wondering what they got. Liddell Betts has an eye for talent, and he was able to find, I think, a hidden jewel here in Nathan McNeil. Again, I didn't think we would be talking about this kid at all, yet here we are. He was able to turn some heads, to do some things that definitely, I think, is going to have him part of the conversation. And for those young guys, Xavier Williams and Brevin Dahl, you got to look out, because they're coming. They're coming after you, and they're not going to be sitting back. Speaking of the running back spot, one final thing we have to talk about, and that is the departure of Liddell Betts and Omar Young now coming in. An outsider, doesn't have some of the same background that maybe we're used to. I mean, going back to Liddell Betts, obviously there is a guy with a background that we knew a ton about, but this guy's been in the league for a long time in the NFL, was able to put together some very successful running back groups at that time. So we'll see how he fits in, what it's going to look like for Omar Young, but big shoes to fill, certainly, with Liddell Betts moving on to the NFL and back in the NFL and the coaching side of things with the New York Giants. That is our post-spring look, as we're going position by position across all the different position groups for Iowa football, and give you kind of a post-spring look at some of the guys and some of the names that we need to know as we make our way into summer. Still got a few more of these previews to get into. Very excited, though, about the running back room, and think they're going to be in really good shape here in 2025. We continue Locked On Hawkeyes. Let's talk some basketball recruiting. Let's talk a little Iowa baseball. We'll do it all on 3 Media's Tom Kakert, HawkeyeReport.com. A look at Iowa basketball recruiting and more with Tom when we come back. Locked On Hawkeyes. There's nothing like the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game. Every bucket, every defensive stop, every moment feels huge. It's electric in the arena, and with Game Time, you can be part of it without the stress of last-minute ticket hunting. Game Time makes it fast and easy to get playoff tickets even when demand is sky high. Prices on the app actually go down as tip-off gets closer, and their last-minute deals can save you up to 60%. Here's why I love using Game Time. Those last-minute deals, saving up to 60% off, buying last minute for sports, comedy, theater. They got you covered on all those fronts, and it doesn't matter the sport. They are right there. I love the Timberwolves. Looking at those playoff tickets, you can jump aboard there. I'm a Twins fan as well. Maybe it's the Cubs, Cardinals, whatever it is, they got you covered with Game Time, and the all-in pricing means no more surprise fees at checkout. How many times has it happened to you? I know it's happened to me. You get there, thought you had a great deal, and then those fees, they have something different to say. What you see is what you pay with Game Time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. As we talk with Tom Kakert from Hawkeye Report.
There is, give this a little plug here tonight with the Hawkeye baseball team in town tonight. Prior to the game tonight, if you're looking for a place to get together, there's a swarm event at Exile Brewery downtown Des Moines from 4 until 6. So Hawkeye fans, they get together at Exile Brewing in downtown Des Moines. Should be a lot of people at that, I would assume, before they make their way over to the ballpark.
Yeah, grab a Swarm Golden Ale, maybe a Swarm Seltzer, and get yourself a little pregame before you head over to Principal Park and watch those Hawkeyes knock off the Beavers.
This is a really good idea, Tom. Good to talk to you. Good idea on the Swarms front, and a good idea on the fact that the baseball team is going to play in downtown Des Moines. It's going to be a beautiful weekend here in the capital city. I'm guessing all over the state of Iowa. And I hope they do more of this. Hopefully it'll be banged out or certainly draw a lot of people. Seemingly some buzz about this, Tom Kakert. Good to talk to you. How are you?
Yeah, there is, and good to talk to you guys. And yeah, it's going to be, I think, a lot of fans wandering over to the park and see the Iowa baseball team, who's been one of the real surprises in all of college baseball this year, and facing a legit, top 15-ish team with Oregon State. And Iowa needs, if Iowa takes 2 out of 3, it's going to help them feel pretty good about their NCAA chances, regardless of what happens. And then, next week, Banks Field's going to be packed to the rafters when Oregon comes to town. So you can the Iowas can do a little scoreboard watching this weekend with the Big Ten results while they play. And this will be a fun. How about Oregon State's travels? They started their week in Hawaii. They're going to end up in Des Moines, Iowa this weekend.
All over the place. The life as an independent, certainly in college athletics, we're seeing that a full hit. One baseball question. We know Rick Heller is outstanding, and what he does with the just lack of resources that they have for Iowa baseball is incredible, what he's been able to do with this program. What can you tell us about the new pitching coach this year, Sean Kenny? Last season, those expectations that they had fell flat. A lot of it was the bullpen early on, and even the rotation was not what I think, expected a year ago. What has Sean Kenny done with this group? And we know Obermuller was going to be a stud at the top, but they're good, they're deep, and they got some bullpen arms too.
I often think that sometimes, good and bad are contagious, especially in baseball. I think it sometimes happens in basketball too, when you're just, not making free throws late in the game, and it just kind of gets contagious. And I think that was what happened last year with Iowa baseball, is that they just couldn't throw strikes. Just plain and simple, could not throw strikes. Brody Breck, Marcus Morgan, even Obermuller struggled at times putting people on base. The bullpen struggled walking people. And Sean Kenny's just come in there and basically just said, throw strikes. And it starts at the top of the rotation with Obermuller, and he has really settled down and is, just not walking people. And he lost control a little bit in the last game, at Washington where he was through, I think, 5 2/3 and there 5 innings, and he just that sixth inning, I think he just couldn't throw a strike. And but that's just how important that is for the college level. You've got to throw strikes because you can't give up free bases, and that's, I think, the big thing that Kenny's got him to do is just throw strikes consistently, not give the free bases up.
Tom Kakert, HawkeyeReport.com joins us. Tom, I know that the story's 5 days old right now, but we haven't spoken to you since last Friday. And, of course, the game took place, Sunday at Carver-Hawkeye.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy, right? The get-in price, I think I saw, was $600. The get-in price to Madison Square Garden tonight for Celtics and Knicks is $600. I mean, it's just amazing. Just kind of your recap on what you saw last Sunday and what you've heard subsequent to that.
Yeah, it was so cool. You kind of got those feelings back that you had from the previous couple of years when they made the Final Four runs, and seeing a lot of the gang back together and seeing Lisa Bluter there and seeing Gabby Marshall back and just everybody. It was kind of like all the family got back together again for a little reunion, and seeing Caitlin and the most Caitlin thing of all time. You talk about a superstar meeting the moment.
Yeah.
And I know it was a 50-point game at the time or whatever it was. I mean, it was out of hand, but she comes down and she knows she's coming out of the game at the end of that third quarter, and she's not going back in, and to just come down and just drill a 36-foot shot is just, I mean, that's Caitlin Clark.
She gets the moment, doesn't she? She really, truly does.
Meets it all the time.
Yeah.
Just meets it and meets it and meets it. And it's unusual. I'll just say that. It's just unusual. And that place got so loud, but it was like, I saw her pulling up and I'm like, yeah, of course she's going to take that shot. And of course it's just going to swish. Yeah. I mean, that's who she is.
Basketball. Things feel like they've slowed down with McCollum and company. Yeah. They had a couple of guards that have come on visits. There was that big kid from Belgium that was talked about. Looks like maybe he's going to end up at Virginia. What do you read into that? There's a couple of those guys haven't committed anywhere that they're still after, or at least brought in on visits. Is it a financial thing? Is it Iowa pumping the brakes? Why haven't we heard any bit more with kind of those last couple of prospects Iowa had hosted?
Yeah, I think it's kind of like a game of chicken almost. It's where they've got an asking price, and Iowa is just sort of like, yeah, that's a little rich for our blood. How about a lower price? And they're holding firm. Iowa's holding firm, and the other options might be holding firm, I assume, that on their price tag. So I think things will probably start to break here in the next week or two with those last couple guys. But there's just, I think Iowa's probably close to being out of money. They're just, there's only so much money that's going to be out there for them, and to spend in NIL, and I just don't think they want to spend it on and keep spending and keep spending. I mean, you're getting like Illinois now has like the Baltic All-Star team with their roster for next year, and it's over $10 million.
And they're 80-1 to win it all, by the way. Not that
Illinois won't win a national championship.
Well, 80-1 got my attention. It's
wild though that you're going to spend. And they readily admit they've spent over $10 million on that roster.
That's nuts.
And it's wild. There's so many teams this year that have spent over $10 million because everybody got crazed before they thought the House decision was going to come in, and they were just throwing money away like a drunken sailor on shore leave. I mean, it's wild.
It's a lot of money to go 24-11 and lose in the second round, but to each their own. Kiza Giffa was kind of, I think, the guy that we're talking about there.
Yeah,
I did have one more. We haven't talked a whole lot about Navan Shabazz, the kid that was committed to the previous staff under Fran.
Yep.
Then McCollum comes in, remained committed to Iowa, and after they've talked to him. So he's from over in your area. He's a Davenport kid. What can you tell us about Shabazz? What kind of player is he? Because for whatever reason, he's kind of flown under our radar here, certainly in central Iowa. Yeah,
and he's actually been living in central Iowa, which is the wild thing. He's at the the Iowa United group with that prep school there. And they have quite the AAU team, by the way. They're tearing up the Adidas League right now. I think they went undefeated last weekend, from what his dad was telling me, Navon's dad, who I see on a regular basis. And he was telling me that they just tore it up. But Navon's playing really well. He missed a lot of time during the year. He had a little bit of a hamstring issue during the season, being coached by Dean Oliver at the prep level. I believe Justin Ohl is coaching him at on the AAU team, so local product there. He's coaching the AAU team, and they're really good. And he's playing really well. He's playing more point than combo, but he's got good size, good strength. He can be a really good defensive player when he puts his mind to it, and he's been doing that really well as well. So I think the outside shot's got to come around a little bit, but boy, he's crafty with the ball. I've always liked Navon's game. He's really smooth with the ball.
I want to go back to some of NIL, Tom, before we let you go here. And you mentioned the fact that the right now the players are holding firm to their price. Is this going to kind of like buying a ticket from a scalper that, it's $100, but 5 minutes before the game might be 90. As you get closer to the season, might the price tag drop and you can maybe grab a player who at the time was out of reach, but now the closer we get, maybe he goes on sale.
Yeah, I think that's what they're hoping, that maybe that happens, that the price tags start to drop, and because I think most of these guys want to get somewhere by June, so we're closing in on that, a couple of weeks away, and then they can get somewhere in June and start working out with their new teammates. So that's why I think in the next 2 weeks things will really start to break. But right now everybody's just sort of like in a holding pattern. There's a couple guys out there, but I think a lot of these guys are thinking, boy, I can just hold out and get this giant bag because I'm the last one standing, when all these other schools are like, we're out of money. We're out of money. We don't have any more to spend. So we're going to have to, you're going to have to lower your price tag.
So we see George Nahas, he goes from a walk-on at Iowa State to a walk-on at Iowa. But when it comes to those walk-ons and potentially bringing walk-ons back, we don't know exactly how a settlement case is going to figure out. But when we hear the terminology that's being used, coming back, roster limits are going to change.
Favor.
So are they suddenly going to start knocking on doors? And what about a guy like Nahas? He was on the roster at Iowa State. Is he going to come? Do we have any clue, or is this just more chicanery, and we'll figure it out as we go?
Yeah, it's just more stuff. I think they just have enough. They've got a little space left, and I think they're willing to go over the 105, maybe a little bit if they want to. I can't remember where they're at. I think they were slightly under the 105. Maybe they're over a little bit, but it won't matter now that everything's grand. It's such a disaster and so unfair what they did.
Yep.
But Iowa tried to do the right thing, and the schools that just hung on to all their guys, they're going to get rewarded here, and they're going to have extra guys for practice and everything this year, because that's how it's going to work out. But what do you do? I don't know. It's just, you're never rewarded for doing the right thing.
No, it's going to come back and bite him by the sounds of things. Tom Kakert, HawkeyeReport.com. You do right by us every Friday, Tom Kakert. Want you to know that. Thank you again. We'll talk to you in a week's time. Thanks, Tom. Have a great weekend.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks, guys.
See you, buddy.
Bye.
Tom Kakert, HawkeyeReport.com, part of On3 Media.
Saw a lot there from Tom, and a great appreciation of everything that he passes along to us each and every week as we break things down on the Hawkeye front. Tom Kakert, HawkeyeReport.com, all part of On3. Iowa baseball, we talked a little bit about it. This turnaround in the pitching staff this season, what we've seen out of them, gives them a real opportunity. In fact, Iowa's got a big advantage in a matchup against a top 10 Oregon State team. We'll tell you why when we come back. This is Locked On Hawkeyes. Did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console needed. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe, or sign into Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles, from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty Black Ops 6 and Avowed. As easily as you stream your favorite shows, it's gaming made simple, all on your Fire TV. With 4K streaming, you can watch more than 1.5 million movies and TV episodes from your favorite subscribed services like Netflix, Prime Video, Disney Plus, Max, and more. As someone with a couple of little kids at home, I love the endless entertainment option that you have with this. And getting into gaming, it's been a while. I jumped back in with the new EA Sports College Football game this season. Of course, this summer, another one's going to be coming out. This is a great option for you to start playing on Xbox. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd generation, Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd generation, and Fire TV Cube 3rd generation. Online, Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On. Trent Condon back with you one final time on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for being with us and making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. Your team every day. We do that here for you on all your favorite teams. I got you covered on the Hawkeye front. And thanks for you everydayers with us each and every day, talking all things Hawkeyes. Love to have you aboard with us. Make sure you hit us up on the YouTube side of things with a subscribe. If you're on the audio side, 5-star reviews helps us get in front of more Hawkeye fans. So Iowa has one big advantage in this series against Oregon State, and it's the starting pitching matchups. The starting pitching matchups for Iowa are pretty significant, starting here on Friday night with Kade Obermuller on the bump. Saw a handicapper, respected one in Colin Wilson, who does a lot of handicapping on the baseball side, also big into college football. And he mentioned how significant of the edge is in this one. And when you look strictly at the numbers here, Iowa's top 3 in their starting rotation this weekend is a pretty big step up. Here's one thing, though, to keep in mind. After this weekend, what still awaits for Iowa? Of course, it's that end of the regular season series against Oregon. A Big Ten championship could be on the line. A regular season title. RPI implications obviously are going to be a part of that. And with all that being said, the series is actually going to be cut down today. And from what we're used to, just going on this weekly basis, Friday, Saturday, Sunday games, things start a day earlier next week. Does that mean that Rick Heller is going to be a little bit more cautious with his starting rotation? That's where Iowa has their biggest advantage. Their starting rotation is where it is. Lineup-wise, Oregon State's got him beat. Depth of what they have in terms of arms, that's the Beavers. Certainly bullpen, the Beavers have the advantage there. But what Iowa does have is those 3 starting pitchers. But if it is, instead of going out there and hoping you can get 7 innings and get 100, 105 pitches out of these guys, you're going to dial it back more into that 80 to 90 pitch range. Just something to keep an eye on here. Iowa's best opportunity for a win, it starts tonight. Obermuller is an elite level pitcher, and this is the one to get. You jump off on that big foot. Look, if Iowa gets out of this series with a win, you're feeling okay. It is going to be okay in terms of the RPI. This is a top 10, top 15 team you're taking on in Oregon State. You get swept, yeah, that's a problem. And people are going to point at and say, look, Iowa can't compete against the top level teams. Iowa can't compete against the elite. They don't deserve to be an NCAA tournament team. You win a game, okay. You win the series, though, that's going to really change the equation. And we do something crazy here, we won't even think about that. Hopefully, we will come back together and talk about that. If you're going out to Principal Park this weekend, have a great time. Cheer on the Hawkeyes. Exile putting together their event and doing great work on that down at Exile Brewing. If you're out there this afternoon, have yourself a Swarm Golden Ale, have a seltzer, and help out the Hawkeyes in the process while enjoying a cool one on what should be a great weekend for baseball down at Principal Park. Thanks for being with us and making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. I'm Trent Condon, glad to have you aboard with us. And thanks again to all you everydayers out there. We'll be back with you. Some rapid reaction to what we see with the Iowa baseball team in this monstrous series against the Beavers, plus Anything else pops on the recruiting trail, we got you covered. Your team every day. This is Locked On Hawkeyes. And don't forget about, for your second listen, the Portal Show, Brian Smith has the latest rumors, portal entries, and signings. Be the most informed fan on the rapid changes to college football landscape with the Portal. You can find the Portal on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We'll talk to you again over the weekend. Until then, go Hawks.